What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JFK Debates Project. I am your host, Matt Douthit from Dallas, Texas. Today we have JFK researcher Jack Myers from Philadelphia. Jack, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. You are the first conspiracy believer slash researcher that I've had on my show, on my debate.
Well, it's about time.
I know. I've
One.
just done Lone Nutter so far. I've had a fence sitter, and then I have a George Hickey accidentally shot Kennedy guy on.
Right, right,
Now I'm completely over to the conspiracy guys
right.
section. So this is kind of new
Well,
for me.
I had been a fence sitter for some time back in the 90s and early part of the century. I was a fence sitter, but the whole business with the second Oswald wallet at 10th and Patton and the testimony later given by the FBI agent that was backed up by a few of the Dallas police officers, that changed my mind. That wallet does not belong there. Should not have been there. It was filmed, and some very credible people have told us it was there.
That's very
And
interesting that it was the wallet at the Tippit
it
scene.
was the wallet.
That's a very unique thing to make someone's needle switch. That's very interesting. So anyway, like I said, I've only debated low nutters and one fence sitter. So first time doing a conspiracy believer, we're gonna play it by ear and just see what happens because this is gonna be new for me. Uh,
Sure.
you have written four articles on
Two.
two.
Two. Yeah, I wrote two articles, one in 2019, I believe, the other in 2023. And
Yeah,
I wrote those for the Kennedy and King's, or the Kennedys, plural, and King's website. And that's run by Jim DiEugenio, who's
yes.
sort of the heir apparent to Jim Garrison. He's taken up the mantle from Judge Garrison and has continued Garrison's work that was done down in New Orleans. And Jim DiEugenio is also the script writer for Oliver Stone.
Mhm.
So I sent a few articles in to Jim DiEugenio. He helped to edit them. We went back and forth on some changes, and they were eventually published. The first one, which was titled "Why Officer Tippit Stopped His Killer," Jim once mentioned that was like the most widely read and discussed article on his website in about 5 years, because
Yeah,
I had a new perspective, a new take on why Officer Tippit stopped the person who shot him, and I do not believe it had anything to do directly with the assassination.
gotcha. Let's start there. Your famous article, Why Officer Tippit Stopped His Killer. Why don't you explain that?
Well, um, it has been thought for many years. The certainly the Warren Commission and the lone nunners have believed that Tippit was patrolling in that district. He had been reassigned a few minutes before by the dispatcher, Murray Jackson, to patrol in, I guess we would call that northern Oak Cliff. And he happened to be cruising down 10th Street, east on 10th Street. We're not sure exactly what he was doing, why he was on that street, but he noticed the young man walking on the sidewalk. And we are told that based on the very scant description that was passed out over police radio concerning the shooter from the book depository, we were told that the description was a white male, young white male, approximately 30, possibly carrying a 30-30 rifle, 5'10", 165 pounds, was the main suspect in the assassination. And based on that very scant description, Officer Tippit stopped his killer. I can tell you right now that on that day in 1963, my father was 30 years old, and he was 5'10" and approximately 165 pounds. So he would have fit the description. Okay.
Yeah.
When I was 30, I would have come fairly close to fitting the description as well. So it's hard to believe that miles and miles away from Dealey Plaza, that Officer Tippit would stop this particular person out of thousands and thousands of young white men of average height and average weight. Why he would stop this particular person? So That's the official reason given. I don't buy the reason. I think a lot of the people in your camp and my camp do not buy it. There had to be something else going on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, you mentioned the description. Yeah, for those that don't know, um, so he's looking for a guy, what, 165, 175 pounds. I mean, as someone once said, that's a light heavyweight boxer.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And it's like,
165 to 175 would be, at least
yeah,
medium build.
yeah,
Lee Oswald at the time, when he was autopsied, he only weighed 129 pounds. His listed height has always been 5'9". If you look at the photos, and of course you had a lot of film footage, a lot of photos that were taken the weekend of the assassination when Oswald was in custody. I don't think he looks 5'9". He looks more 5'6", 5'7" at most. He's standing, for example, when he's shot next to Detective Jim Lavelle.
yeah.
Lavelle's height is well known. It's 5'10", and Lavelle is several inches taller than the prisoner.
So he's off in the weight. He's 10 years off in age because they're looking for a guy in his early
Right.
30s. Oswald's 24, and he had just turned 24. I think people
Yeah.
forget
I,
about
I would concede that one, Matt, because Oswald did have a receding hairline. He was
that.
conservatively dressed. If you look at the photos of him, especially the weekend of the assassination, I would have guessed his age at closer to 30 than 24. But he's not 165 pounds. No way.
Yeah. I think a lot of low nutters today don't believe that the official story that Tippit stopped this guy on the street, on the sidewalk, because he fit the description. Because I think they've come around to accepting that, if that were the case, then Tippit would have stopped, 50 men in the past half hour. Why do you think the man was stopped? Because to me, that is probably the biggest question. Why did Tippit stop this guy on the sidewalk?
Right, right. I think that question was answered a few years ago by two researchers know well, William Pulte from Southern Methodist University and Michael Brownlow. I believe they've both since passed away, but they had done a lot of research in the Dallas area and especially in Oak Cliff. I believe Brownlow, for example, lived most of his life in Oak Cliff. And when most of the other researchers had gone, all of the people, such as Mark Lane, for example, uh, the local people remained. And we're talking about Mr. Harris, for example, and Mike Brownlow, Bill Poldy. They were the ones who kept pounding the pavement.
Hmm.
What they found out was there had been some kind of altercation at the corner of 10th and Marcellus. There
Yeah.
had been a fight. And it wasn't until I heard the description of the fight, not that there was just an altercation or a fight, but actually that a couple of men and a young woman had got into an altercation with a single male, young male, and that person had been stabbed and thrown into a back of a blue, I think it was a Mercury Monterey. And
Yeah.
the car sped off with the stabbing victim in the back seat.
Somewhere a minute after Officer Tippit was shot, or 1 minute before Officer Tippit was shot, in that 60 seconds, at the corner of 10th and Marcellus, 2.5 blocks away, you have a man that has been stabbed, violently stabbed. Mr. Cecil Smith, Bill and I talked to him together. Mr. Tom, a guy named Tom Black, he worked for Crown Plumbing, he saw it. Miss Harriet, the woman who owned Crown Plumbing, Mr. Siegel, they were all there. They ran, and the people at the auto place. But these people saw this man get stabbed. Miss Herland's son was coming up the street, and he was on a bicycle. And as he's fast as he could pump, and he got up to the scene, he saw his mother standing out there, and he saw the policeman, and she told him, Miss Herland said she told her son, and she said, baby, somebody shot this policeman. Well, he looked at his mom, and he said, Mom, he said, well, I see what's happening here. But down at the corner, He said, a man just got stabbed. He said, God, there's blood everywhere down there. He said, they threw the man in the back of a blue Mercury or a Lincoln and took off with him.
So when I got those particular details, that clicked, because if you remember, there's another local researcher, I believe his name was Lowry.
Greg Larry, yeah.
Greg Lowry. And he had done a lot of work, including running some details down on Roscoe White. Mm-hmm. Roscoe White worked at a local insurance company after, I believe, he left the force. And he went over to that insurance agency in the office to talk to people about Mr. White. And while he was there, he ran into somebody named Andrews, Mr. Andrews. Mm-hmm. Andrews said, hey, you know, since you're investigating the Tippit case, something very strange happened to me a few minutes before Tippit was killed. I was driving west on 10th Street, on West 10th Street, and a police car suddenly came up behind me, raced past me, pulled me to the curb, threw his hands up and said, didn't say anything, but the officer said, you know, motion for me to stay still, stay behind the wheel, don't move. And that officer ran up to my car and looked in the back seat. Then the officer went back to his vehicle, jumped in, turned it around, and went speeding off on 10th Street to the east. No words were ever said, but Andrews did get the badge name and number, and he said the name on that badge was Tippit. Yeah. And he said that couldn't have been any more than a couple of minutes before the officer was killed. Yep. I believe that what happened, Matt, was Tippit, and you won't find it in the radio logs, but I think this happened. I think he got a call around 1 o'clock, and this was when he was at the Top 10 record store. Mm-hmm. He got a call that there was a disturbance at 10th and Marsalis, and that is when Louis Cortinas and Dub Stark, the people who were working, and I think Mr. Stark was the owner of the Top 10 records, that's when they saw Tippit pull out at a high rate of speed, cross Jefferson going north, blew the stop sign at Sunset. Well, if he goes one more block, he's at 10th. And that's when he would have seen Mr. Andrews coming from the direction of 10th and Marsalis. So instead of turning right to head down to Marsalis, I believe Tippit made a very quick split-second decision to follow the Andrews car. He thought that may have been coming from the scene of the fight. So when he raced past the car and pulled Mr. Andrews over, motioned Mr. Andrews to sit still, don't move, and ran up and looked into the back seat, he was not looking for Lee Oswald, as some people thought. He was looking for that stabbing victim from down at 10th and Marsalis. Seeing that nobody was in the car except for Mr. Andrews, he realized, I've just pulled over the wrong car. He jumped back into his cruiser, reversed course, and then headed east toward 10th and Marsalis. That's when he crossed Patton and saw the young man coming in his direction, not walking east, but as we all know today, walking west, as the original police report said. Yeah. That's why he stopped that person. Hey, buddy, can you come over to the car? Can I see some ID? Were you just down at 10th and Marsalis? Where are you coming from and what are you doing? Mm-hmm. And I believe that's why he stopped that person. And it had nothing to do originally with the assassination. Although, as we all know, the Tippit case is very much tied into the assassination.
Yeah, that would seem to work. I mean, well, the thing is that originally it was said that the fight / incident / alleged stabbing happened at 12th and Marsalis, and then it was later said it was at 10th and Marsalis.
Yes.
So I know
it was changed, but there were witnesses that were eventually named, and one of them, confusingly, was William Smith. But there were other people named. There was a woman who ran a business on the corner, but 3 or 4 people were named as witnesses who Pulte and Brownlow had spoken to, who had seen the fight. And this only came out in a YouTube video that Brownlow and Pulte did a few years ago. So we've heard about the fight. We have very scant details. There was a fight But
Yeah.
now we have better details. And when you think about it, the stabbing and the man getting put in the back seat of that car match perfectly with what Greg Lowry told us about talking to Mr. Andrews and how Tippit looked into the back seat.
So you think he pulled the wrong car over? Yeah.
Correct. So what he did was, okay, I'm probably not going to catch anybody at the scene, but I'm going to slow down and cruise toward the scene of the fight and see if I see anybody on foot walking from the fight.
Now you said that, how would Tippit have known that? Because we have the Dallas police transcripts, and and that message is not a message to Tippit saying
it's not there.
Not,
All we know is that Jackson tried to raise Tippit or to call Tippit around 1 o'clock. And it's always been assumed that, well, Tippit was probably in the top 10 record store and was out of his squad car.
Yeah.
But I think that message, I think that was one that never made the original cut, the original transcripts. Or
I don't think we should rely on the transcripts, because the transcripts, for those that don't know, there were 3 transcripts made of the Dallas police tapes. One had not a lot in it. The other one had more in it, and the third one had proclaimed to be like pretty much the whole thing. But to me, I would just rely on the actual audio, where we get even more stuff on there. So wouldn't that be more reliable than to rely on old?
It would be reliable, but if there was something very, very important on there that the authorities did not want out to come out, that could have been altered. And they could have simply changed that, cut that out, and changed it to a call to Tippit, which wasn't answered.
I guess that's possible. I just don't see any evidence for that. I mean, I think it would be a mundane thing to cut out. Hey, there's a altercation over here, or go check that out. I mean, I don't think that. I think that would be too mundane to cut out.
No, it's very important, I think, Matt, because it goes to the heart of why Tippit stopped this person.
I think
the official story is he stopped him because he thought he was involved with the assassination.
Yeah. I think that what the explanation you gave could be the reason why Tippit stopped the man and why he pulled over James Andrews. But I just don't know how Tippit would have gotten that information unless the tapes were altered, and I don't think I can make that leap yet. That's where I am right now. So.
Okay. I mean, I sent you one of the original transcripts where it obviously shows the ambulances arriving at 1:10, not 1:18 or 1:19. So things were changed, and things were added or left, especially left out.
And
those were on the transcripts that I sent you. They are in the Warren report. Yep. They're in one of the 26 volumes of extra materials.
Now,
and I was able to pull that from John Armstrong's site.
Yeah. Did John Armstrong post the audio or no?
No. He just posted that transcript, the written transcript. It's typed, actually.
So for the audience listening, why is that 1:10 important?
Well, it's very important, especially because if you believe that Oswald had walked from the rooming house to the murder scene at 10th and Patton, he does not have the time to get there at 1:10. If he left the rooming house a bit after 1 o'clock, there's no way he can walk almost a full mile in 10 minutes or less.
When it's talking about dispatching the 3 ambulances at 1:10, it says 1:10 in the transcript.
Yes.
Have you listened to the actual audio of that to confirm that that's what it says, or no?
I haven't listened to the actual audio, no.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Well, let me know if you can hear this. This is where it dispatches the 3 ambulances.
In 4603 and 602 119.
119. It's not 1:10. I know that's what the transcript says, 1:10, and I wish that were true. That would be, that would help.
Well, that is what the transcript says, the original.
Yeah. But we have the actual audio here. Let me play it again.
And 4603 and 602 on 19.
I mean, he clearly said 119 and not, I mean,
Does sound like 119. I agree.
so it's 119. So I think so it's obvious that it was just a typo, and then they,
Okay.
you know,
But we have the information from the hospital with Tippit being pronounced DOA at 1:15. You
Yeah.
had the other TF Boley, who shows up at the scene as Tippit's body is still lying there, and he looks at his watch and says he has to be somewhere, and he knows, oh, I have to pick my wife up. And he said the time was 1:10, and he signed an affidavit to that effect.
I
We
agree.
have several witnesses who believe that the time of the shooting was much earlier than the official
I
time.
agree. I agree with that, and because for everyone talks about Helen Markham shooting around 106, Mrs. Higgins around 106, and TF Boley at 110 when he found
Right.
Tippit in the street, as you just said. But actually, there's actually like not I counted nine more others, so 12 people total who say in their reportage from that weekend and subsequently that 12 people who say that it was closer to 1 o'clock, not closer to
Correct.
120. So I agree with
Right. So
you.
we have a lot of evidence that shows that makes that tape suspect, at least in
Okay.
my opinion. And for all the people, for example, we know that Helen Markham has been discredited in many ways as far as some of the things that she said and
Yeah.
claimed that she saw that day. But one thing we have to understand is Mrs. Markham was on her way to catch a 112 bus
Yep.
to go downtown to her job as a waitress.
Mhm.
So the time of the bus is known. It's printed and in a schedule, and that's the bus she was on her way to catch. So even though we can't fully accept some of the things Mrs. Markham said, I believe as far as the time, she's probably fairly accurate because she knows when her bus is and when she has to catch it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Let's go back 1 second to the 150 because that's talked about a lot about people say, oh, the permit for autopsy says that Tippit was DOA at Methodist Hospital at 1:15. So do you think that Tippit's body was at Methodist Hospital at 1:15?
Yeah, that would be about right. The Dudley Hughes ambulance was 2.5 blocks away. It was actually on the escape route of the killer.
Yeah.
They only had to come 2 blocks. They made it 3 because the original call was from Denver Street, from Frank Wright. Am I correct? And his wife. So they actually went up Denver Street and had to turn around and come back down 10th Street. So they went an extra block. But according to the two ambulance drivers, they believe they were on scene within 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. So to me, I think it's impossible for him to be at the hospital at 1:15 because TF Bowley used Tippett's radio at 1:16. The ambulance arrived at 1:19. Tippit arrived at the hospital actually at 1:23 and was pronounced DOA at 1:30. And even the late Larry Harris agreed with this. And in his
Okay.
Tippit timeline, he says that, he attests to these times. I think what you're thinking about is the permit for autopsy because everyone says it's the death certificate, but it's not the death certificate, it's the permit for autopsy. And it says the time of death is 1:15, but it's not saying that that's when he was DOA. But it does say he was DOA, but not that that's when he was pronounced DOA. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't make full sense to me because I don't think the hospital had any clue. It's not their job to determine when Officer Tippit was shot and killed and where. They just know they have somebody arriving who needs, critical care. And when they pronounce him dead, they're going to write the time down. It wasn't their job to do an investigation. The important thing is it was several minutes before the official time, I think whether it was 106, 108, 110,
Yeah.
you know,
So,
they all put us in the same position.
yeah.
Oswald certainly could not have walked from the rooming house in time to do the shooting.
Yes.
The only way he gets there is if he is driven.
Yeah, and that seems improbable. Kind of improbable that why would you drive someone just to drop them off up at the corner up at the few blocks over
Right.
here just to walk. Yeah, so
And it's pretty much conceded at this point, Matt, that the killer was not walking east; he was walking west.
yeah,
So that makes the route longer.
yeah, that would be 16 minutes. The official story is 12 minutes going east, but it had Oswald have, as I've said numerous times, had Oswald been the killer, he would have had to have walked west, which is, minus 16 minutes. So if the Tippit shooting is around 110 minus 16 minutes, that's way before
Right.
plus
Your
the
sidekick Bill Brown says
plus hold on.
that he went the same that Oswald
Yeah.
and we would say the gunman, Bill would say Oswald, but that he did cross the corner at 10th and Patton going east as he got to that curve past Denver where you can start to see the corner of Marsalis, saw was it a sheriff's car and reverse course.
Yeah.
But I would say I'm not sure that happened. But if you give Bill that, for example, it just adds a couple of more minutes and makes it all the more improbable that
Yeah.
someone could have walked that distance.
Yeah. So plus the amount of time he plus the 3 minutes that Oswald was in his rooming house, plus the several minutes that he was at the bus stop outside his rooming house, plus the 16 minutes, all of that all of that, so 110 minus all that time, Oswald would have to arrive at the rooming house at like 12:49, and we know that didn't happen.
Right, that didn't happen.
So this whole thing is over no matter what. But
well, I have a different take on it, of course. I don't think Oswald was ever at the rooming house. Okay.
ooh.
So that would make it very different. Let me back up for a second. Let's take, and I don't mean to, I don't mean to pick on Bill Brown. I like Bill Brown a lot. He's a good guy. We just disagree
I've
him
debated
on this subject.
I've debated him 3 times, so
I know, and I've watched some of his videos and his walk and talks on the route. They're very educational. You pick up a lot from his work. But let's back up to Dealey Plaza for a minute. You have the real Oswald, Lee Oswald, leaving the Texas School Book Depository. And what does he do? Where does he go?
officially he walks 7 blocks and gets on a bus, but other witnesses have him get in the station wagon.
Okay, exactly. You know exactly where I'm going. So we know that Oswald was on that bus because after his arrest, when they searched them late, found the bullets, they found the bus transfer.
Yep.
So we have a pretty good idea that he was on that bus because he had the bus transfer on his person. He can't be on that bus at 12:40 and be seen by Deputy Sheriff Roger Craig and several other witnesses coming down the grassy knoll from the direction of the book depository and getting in the Nash Rambler. But we have the sworn testimony of Roger Craig, the deputy sheriff, and several other motorists who were stopped because they couldn't get past. They would later sign sworn affidavits and give testimony that we saw Lee Oswald come down the grassy knoll from the book depository and get in the Nash Rambler with a dark complected man who was probably Latino.
Yeah.
And drive off in the direction of Oak Cliff. So we have people in 2 different spots who are supposedly both Oswald. And what I would tell Bill Brown, I know Bill is, brings it up that look at how many witnesses were able to finger Oswald in the lineups for the killings, that they swore that we saw Lee Oswald either shoot Tippit and or escape from the scene and run around the corner at 10th and Patton and run south on Patton toward Jefferson. And Bill likes to say every step he had eyes on him, and those people all identified the gunman as Lee Oswald. Well, if that's the case, then who is coming down the grassy knoll from the book depository and seen by all those people who they swear is Lee Oswald?
So do you think the real Oswald was on the bus and that the Oswald lookalike was in the station wagon?
Yes. The Oswald looking like was in a station wagon, which was then seen headed toward Oak Cliff. I believe what happened was that the station wagon dropped off the lookalike probably at the El Chico, at the restaurant there. At because when you think about it, Oswald did not tell the taxi driver. He didn't tell Mr. Is it Whaley? William Whaley.
William
He didn't tell William Whaley to take him to the corner of Neely and North Beckley. He said, "I want to go to the 500 block."
Yep.
And that's written down on Mr. Whaley's sheet. And he testified, the man told me to take him to the 500 block. When he got to the 700 block at the corner of Neely, he said, "This'll do. Just let me out here," meaning I don't have to go the rest of the way.
Yeah.
You just drop me off here. When he got out of that taxi, I don't believe he went north back to the rooming house. I believe he continued south. Now, here's what I believe happened. Tippit tells Jackson at 12:54 his position, right? 8th and Lancaster. And some people who have heard the tapes say that with Tippit's East Texas accent, where he drops the G's, he didn't say Lancaster, he said Lansing, Lansin. And if you add the G, it's Lansing. That's 2 blocks east of Lancaster.
78. 78. You are in the Oak Cliff area, are you not? Lansing is. You will be at large for any emergency that comes in. 10-4.
He was on 8th at the approximately at the corner of Lansing, which is just a couple of blocks from 8th and North Beckley, where it turns into Davis. I believe what happened was Oswald didn't, since he was ahead of schedule, he didn't want to be seen getting out of the taxi at a busy corner where Davis meets North Beckley across from the El Chico. Instead, he got off at the very quiet corner of Neely. And Whaley says, the last I saw the man was he walked in front of my cab to the other side of the street. Whaley never saw him go north. Whaley also said he was wearing a blue jacket. Okay? Whaley was he was an excellent witness. He described all of the clothing that Lee Oswald wore that day. He had the shirt correct. He had the pants correct. He even had the little, was it a bracelet? He had the bracelet correct. And he mentioned a blue work jacket.
Yeah, I think
when Oswald supposedly walked north to the rooming house and was seen by Earlene Roberts entering, she said, and this is her testimony, the man came in shirt sleeves. He came in without a jacket.
Yeah.
Where did the jacket go that Oswald was wearing when he got out of the cab?
This is like a reverse Bill Brown moment, because Bill Brown always says, talks about what happened to the jacket over by the Texaco station. And so you're saying what happened to this other jacket?
Correct. That's forgotten. The people on Cecil McWhorter's bus described Oswald as wearing a blue jacket. I think one person said blue, like dark blue, and the other said a lighter blue, cloth type jacket. But they described him as wearing a jacket.
And a blue jacket was later found in the depository.
Correct. Even though the depository had been searched for evidence, people have been looking, and that was found many weeks later.
Yeah.
So So when Oswald gets out of that cab, I believe he walked south. Okay.
Okay.
Now, when he walked south, he would have come within just a minute or two to the corner of Davis and North Beckley.
Yeah.
There is a bus stop there. And catty corner to the bus stop is the El Chico restaurant. I believe the Nash Rambler was there in the parking lot with the Oswald lookalike, who has a white T-shirt on. Okay, he was seen by the witnesses in Dealey Plaza with a white T-shirt. That's what Roger Craig described. That's what the witnesses described. I think what happened was Officer Tippit, who last radioed in at either 8th and Lancaster, or I believe 8th and Lansing. That would just be a minute or two from that corner. He's moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Oswald and Officer Tippit would have met at that corner.
Mm.
Tippit picked up Oswald, and where did he take him? He took him 1 block west to Zhang's, made the left. Basically, he's driving around the parking lot of the El Chico restaurant, so they can be seen. Oswald can be seen being picked up from the restaurant, and he can be seen driven west on A Street or Davis at that point, and south on Zhang's. When that happened, the police probably, in my opinion, it would have been Officer Croy, Sergeant Croy, and more than likely I'm reaching for his name.
Westbrook.
Not Westbrook. No, the one who's supposed to have a broken leg, watching the place
Harry,
up on
Harry Olson.
Harry Olson. I believe it was Olson and Croy. Now it could have been somebody else, but they basically had the white T-shirted look-alike in the car. When they saw Oswald and Tippit go past, it was their turn to go north. So they took the squad car up and dropped off the look-alike or the double just short of the rooming house. And then the squad car went around the block. Meanwhile, the look-alike went in. Mrs. Roberts only saw this person for a split second. First of all, she didn't know Oswald that well. She's got, a couple dozen roomers there at any one time. Oswald was not social. She said at one point, you hardly got a good grunt out of him, so she didn't talk to him. And this person, throughout the day, had been seen by several people and some very credible witnesses, and described this is Oswald. I saw Oswald, the Deputy Sheriff Craig. That was Oswald who came down the grassy knoll. This person went into Oswald's room, and I think he was looking for something to throw down, something to implicate Oswald at the scene. He grabbed Oswald's Eisenhower jacket, and he went through the drawers quickly. Meanwhile, the squad car makes it around the block. Hey, where's our guy? He's got to get out of here. Toot, toot. Erling Roberts sees the squad car, stop for a second, hears it toot, and then move on, go up to the corner of Zhang's again and make the right to go around the block. The double comes out, but now what he has is he starts putting on Oswald's jacket, but he has a bonus. He found the bonus. He found the wallet. Oswald was a wallet aficionado. He loved wallets. He had 2 or 3 more at the Payne's house.
Yeah.
Okay. When they found Oswald's wallet in his room, the natural assumption is, he must have left his wallet, went to work and left his wallet. How many wallets do you have, Matt? 1. Most people, I have 1. Most men have 1. Yeah. Okay. Oswald had 4 or 5 that we know. I think that, and he loved them because he's a CIA contract agent. He's a young agent. He's been in the Soviet defector program. He's doing work back in New Orleans for Guy Bannister and David Ferry, and basically checking on the pro-Castro people in New Orleans. So he's doing all of these small odd jobs. as a young agent. He's following orders. He's doing what he's told. And I think when he was at Jaggers Childs Stovall, is it the JCP, the company that was the lithograph company, and they made maps for us, and including for intelligence agencies in the United States. I think when he was there, he used the equipment to make himself a few extra ID cards. So the person who went in, the lookalike, grabbed the wallet thinking Oswald has left his wallet in his room. We have a bonus. He hustles out of the room right past the end of the couch. Mrs. Roberts is more concerned with her TV that's on the fritz, and she's trying to adjust the rabbit ears on the TV, trying to get the signal. She wants to know what's happening with President Kennedy, as she will say in later interviews. She didn't much pay attention to the guy coming through the door and past the end of the couch and then out. Plus, we already know other people who have seen him have said this is Oswald. He looks like Oswald.
Yeah.
So they now have the jacket and they have the wallet. He gets back into the squad car. They make the right again on Zhang's, and Brownlow and Pulte talk to the gas station attendants there on the corner of Zhang's and North Beckley on that little point of land right across from the rooming house. And they talked to a few of the employees a few years later, and they said, we saw the police car stop and toot because it caught our attention. And then we saw it come around the block again, and there was a man at the corner, and he got in.
Earlene Roberts said the car pulled up, beeped the horn. I talked to the man who worked across the street at the service station at the time, which later became a locksmith shop. But in '63, it was a service station, and he saw the police car pull up, as did the young boy that was working for him. And he said the car did make the block and came back around. And at that point, Oswald had now exited the house, excuse me, the house, and was standing on the corner at the bus stop of Beckley and Zhang, and that's where he got into the police car.
Did they say that, or
yes?
Did you say that? Or?
Well, I don't know. All we know is that Brownlow and Pulte said that they said that.
That's one of those. Yeah, that's one of those things that we can't really corroborate.
We can't corroborate this many years later, but that's what they said. The people at the station saw, just like all of the people who were at the Gloco station. There were 5 witnesses who saw Tippit in his patrol car.
No one
he shouldn't have been there yet.
No one disagrees on that. So
yeah, nobody disagrees on that. This is much less known, much less corroborated. I give you that. I believe what happened next was the 2 officers, and Earlene Roberts talked about seeing 2 uniformed officers. I believe they were Olson and Croy. Could have been somebody else. Basically, continued on Zhang's, made the right, and went down Marsalis. There's actually a shortcut they could have gotten there, but they could have gotten to 10th and Lancaster or so within a couple of minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, easily. The man now wearing Oswald's jacket got out, and he starts walking west. Okay. When he reaches 10th and Marsalis, that's the signal. Let's start the fight here. This was a staged scene. Okay. To draw Tippit. Tippit has already dropped Oswald off. His job was to drop Oswald off at the theater. We have several witnesses who saw Oswald in the theater just after 1 o'clock. We have Jack Davis, who later becomes an evangelist in Dallas. We have Butch Burroughs. Okay. We have multiple people in the theater who saw Oswald there when the credits were rolling to start the first war picture. Okay. Oswald is in the theater.
Yeah.
And
Oswald.
Well, I think the real Lee Oswald.
Yeah.
In the brown shirt.
And
I think he did pay for a ticket. He later went up to Butch Burroughs and bought popcorn. He was seen sitting next to several people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and then you think the other one shot Tippit, and
correct.
Do you think and threw the wallet down and threw the jacket down?
Either threw the wallet down, or Croy already had it, or Westbrook already had it. But when they had Oswald's wallet, which was a bonus to them, like, oh, this is even better than a jacket or a piece of clothing. We have his wallet with ID in it. That's how that got introduced at 10th and Patton. But they did that not knowing that Oswald had another wallet in his pocket with ID, which he did go to work with that day.
Therefore, they would have to suppress the wallet.
Correct. That's why the wallet was there. We know it was there, and then it disappears. It's never seen again.
And you think the jacket's thrown underneath the car at the service station to
implicate Oswald? Yeah, it didn't work because they never could tie it to him because it came from some manufacturer in
I thought you said
Hollywood, and they couldn't trace the laundry tag, so it never worked as it. But they didn't know that. They grabbed the jacket and they grabbed his wallet.
I thought you said that it came from his rooming house, the jacket.
It did, but
Yeah.
Oswald didn't. Oswald never went to the rooming house. It was the look-alike.
You think Oswald lived at the rooming house?
I think he lived at the rooming house. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you think is there a reason to think he didn't live there for those 6 weeks?
No. So then you think he runs and then while one Oswald is in the Texas Theater, then at around 1:35, 1:40, Johnny Brewer sees the other Oswald enter the Texas Theater, correct?
Correct. And that was done purposely. Think about Oswald's actions and the way the police described him that weekend. They were very amazed that this is a man who doesn't seem to act like he's in this much trouble. He's cool, he's calm, and he's collected. Okay. Everything, even when he has a gun pulled on him from a few feet away by Officer Baker in the lunchroom, he doesn't go into a panic.
Yeah.
So why would he go into the lobby of the Hardy Shoe Stores and suddenly act scared and act all hinky? That doesn't make sense to me.
Then you would have to assume that Johnny Brewer misidentified him or was confused when so you think that he saw both of them. He saw this one go in, but in the theater, then he said, oh, that he sees the other guy and says, that's the guy I just saw, even though he didn't just see him. Is that what you believe?
Well, there were two people working in Hardy Shoes that day. Do you know who the second person was?
Tell us.
Tommy Rowe. Do you know who Tommy Rowe is?
Why don't you tell the audience?
Okay. Tommy Rowe is a close associate of Jack Ruby. And after Jack Ruby murders Lee Oswald and goes to jail and is he's charged, and his trial comes up very quickly. The trials used to happen much more quickly in those days. I believe he was tried in April of '64. So when Ruby is sentenced to death and put in the Dallas County Jail, Tommy Rowe then moves into Ruby's old apartment. Mm-hmm. The other person in that shoe store that day in the Hardy Shoe Store with Johnny Brewer was Tommy Rowe. And that's a little too suspicious for me. So I'm not sure what Johnny Brewer saw, if anything. I think Tommy Rowe was behind a lot of what happened. We also know that that Julia Postal, at the insistence of Johnny Brewer, finally at 11:40 made a phone call. Mm-hmm. That, hey, there's a suspicious person who was seen going into the Texas Theater. What was later released, the information that was later found out, was there were 6 other calls that a suspicious man went into the theater. Who made all those calls?
What's the source of all those other calls?
I'll get you that information, and it'll be in my upcoming book as well. But I'll get that to you this week. But one of the Dallas officials said, we got a half a dozen calls about a suspicious person going in. Yeah. And the fact that you have a half dozen calls about a suspicious person entering the theater for not paying a ticket is suspicious to me, and should be suspicious to you and everyone else.
Send that to me, and then I can insert it right here in the video, okay?
And I don't know if you've come across the story that later came out. I think it was in the Dallas Morning News. by someone who had been in the theater. We did later learn that there was a man in the theater named, I believe his name was George Applin,
Yeah.
Applin. And he later said he was afraid to say at the time, but he was sitting near a man who he was sure was Jack Ruby, sitting in the theater watching the arrest of Oswald.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that because don't we know where Ruby was at that time?
Well, Ruby was a lot of places, and he was a lot of places. He seems to have shown up at Parkland Hospital very quickly.
I'm not sure about him being at the theater, but so, and then you
We
think,
do have a witness who claimed that they saw Jack and spoke to him because when the scuffle broke out and there was a gun displayed and they're tackling Oswald and bringing him to the floor. Applin said he saw the gun and he turned to the man sitting near him and said, "We better get out of here." This, and he said the man just turned and looked at him and then turned his head and continued watching the scuffle. And he said that was Jack Ruby. But we have it on pretty good.
I'm not sure. Okay. I'm not sure about it being Jack Ruby. Okay, so then you think that the reason why the Tippit eyewitnesses finger Oswald in the lineups is because the lookalike looked like him, right?
Sure.
And
Sure, the lookalike looked like him. Think about this, Matt. We had a man showing up at the Sportsdrome range on Davis.
Yep.
With a Carcano rifle, shooting at other people's targets, talking about how, he had this beautiful gun and, he's from the Soviet Union. And obviously trying to attract attention to himself. You had the Oswald lookalike who showed up at the Mercury dealership and took the salesman on the ride up and down Stemmons.
Yep.
At 80 miles an hour, scaring this guy. And Oswald is the real Oswald, we're told, didn't even know how to drive.
Exactly.
All right. The morning of the assassination, we had somebody go into a local convenience store near the book depository and buy beer and Pico Brittle and flashed a driver's license that said Lee Oswald.
Yeah. I think it's been proven, especially by John Armstrong's work and, summarized very beautifully in Jim Douglas's book, JFK and the Unspeakable, and which was originally proposed as a hypothesis way back in the 1960s
Correct.
In Richard Pumpkin's book, The Other Oswald.
Right.
I think it's been proven that there was a second Oswald.
Yes.
And to me,
the most important sighting, Matt, was 2 days before the assassination at the Dobbs House Cafe.
Yep.
Where Oswald used to go in mornings before work and he'd have a cup of coffee and read a book.
Yep.
Well, that Wednesday, later in the morning, while Oswald, we know Oswald by the time cards, was in the book depository at work.
Yep.
We have a man looking like Oswald order eggs, and then he starts cursing and causing a scene.
Yep.
And the other person who witnesses verified they knew him was in the Dobbs house at that time watching all of this was Officer J.D. Tippit.
Yep.
Why would Tippit be there several miles from his house? That's nowhere near his district. It's nowhere near where his house on Glencairn. Why would he be at that coffee shop?
I don't know.
Right? Remember, that was not Oswald. When Tippit was killed and his body is lying there in the street, the gunman's making his mistake. He went down 10th Street for a few feet west, and then he cut across the Davis sisters' front lawn. Yeah. Then he was seen jumping through the hedge. By this time, Bill Scoggins, the cab driver, is by his cab peeking out. What does he hear the gunman say?
He says he heard the Tippit killer say, "Poor dumb cop" or "Poor damn cop."
I'm gonna tell you which one I think it was. It was "poor dumb cop" because Tippit was helping to set up Oswald, and he was double crossed as well. So it's the same man who is pretending to be Oswald at the Dobbs house, screaming about his runny eggs, with Tippit watching the whole scene. Okay.
So then you think that the shells were switched to match Oswald's revolver, correct?
They've never had to switch the shells, Matt. They never had to switch them. Do you know what kind of gun was used?
A 38 revolver.
Okay, but it was a special kind of
Yeah.
38 revolver.
The
It was a
victory,
rechambered
the victory model, yeah.
gun. Okay. But it was rechambered. They rechambered it. The outfit in Seaport Traders had a gunsmith change the 38 from using the regular 38s that were popular before the war to the 38 specials that the police liked because they had more stopping power.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happened was once the police and other authorities started using those more powerful 38s, the public wanted the same model.
Mm-hmm.
And Seaport Traders bought a lot of 500 guns from the British government. Those were in storage in case the Nazis had invaded Britain, which they never did. They had the aerial campaign, the Blitz, but they never actually invaded Britain.
Mm-hmm.
But the British government bought several lots of American guns in case that happened, so local police and authorities would have guns available. Those guns were never used. They became war surplus. Seaport Traders bought the guns and had a gunsmith alter the guns. And that meant probably either changing or swapping out the cylinder to accept the new bullets. The new bullets were longer, but they were slightly thinner. But what they didn't do is they took the barrels that were 5 inches and chopped them into 2.5 to make them snub nose.
Mm-hmm.
So that would make it easy for concealment for a personal defense weapon. But they never changed the barrels. The barrels were oversized for that type of ammunition. And what that meant is when you have an oversized barrel, you don't have a tight spiral when the bullet goes down the length of the barrel. It bounces or wobbles a little bit. And when it does that, it doesn't strike the barrel at the same point for each bullet. Each bullet will vary. And when that happens, you can't make a conclusive match. So they could never match the bullets in Tippit's body to the gun that Oswald had.
Yeah.
What they did match were the shells. Why would you have a revolver, if you're the killer, have a revolver, shoot Tippit 4 times, walk away, and suddenly leave the evidence right at the scene? That wasn't accidentally done. That was purposely done. Oswald had been issued that gun by the people he was working with, and they said, look, Lee, carry this gun. Today could be a rough day. Carry this and, only use it in case you need it, but have it with you at all times. They had taken that gun, fired it into a wad of cotton or a barrel of water, okay, and then saved the shells. The killer had the shells from the gun they had issued to Oswald. He used another gun from the same lot of 500. They bought 2 guns from Seaport Traders that were almost exactly alike. And because they were so close and because the barrels were oversized, you couldn't match the bullets. The bullets that were in Tippit came from another similar gun. The shells were from Oswald's gun, the one he had in the theater, but he never fired it that day. That gun had been fired previously, and the shells were kept and deposited at the scene, just like the jacket and just like the wallet. Everything was a throwdown.
So you think that the weapon that he had, that the Oswald that was arrested at the Texas Theater, that was the weapon that the shells that were found at the Tippit scene were fired in, but you think that that conspirators used it earlier at an earlier time to get free.
Yeah, you didn't have to switch the bullets. There was all the nonsense about, did Sergeant Poe put his initials on the bullets? And there was all the stuff about Jerry Hill, who was really he was a guy who became a policeman later. He was a newspaperman. He was a PR guy. Even Jim Lavelle laughed later, like Jerry Hill saying that there was no automatic at the scene. Those were guns those were shells from a revolver. They're clearly marked.
So you think that
they never had to change a thing, Matt. Once you gave Oswald that gun and you deposited the shells from that gun at the scene,
mm-hmm.
Now, if they had used a regular revolver that hadn't been rechambered, then they would have, been able to match the bullets, and the bullets wouldn't have matched.
Okay, so you think that
Bill Brown will tell you there were 5 shots, and that's what happened. There's a shell missing and a bullet missing, and the Warren Commission itself will tell you that there's no evidence for that. That's pure speculation. Everybody on 10th Street said there were 4 shots or less. The only person who mentioned a 5th shot was Ted Calloway. Ted Calloway was in a building that was on Patton Street, a couple hundred feet away from 10th Street, and had other buildings in between. He heard an echo, which is exactly what they tell you in Dealey Plaza. No, there weren't more than 3 shots. You just heard echoes.
So you think there were 4 shots?
4 shots. There were 4 shots.
So, and you think that the brands of the bullets, so for those that don't know, the shells and the bullets do not match up.
Do not match. Yeah, they got a little too fancy.
Brand wise. So they clumsily, accidentally made a mistake when they were pre-planning.
Correct. They made a mistake. They tried to get fancy by mixing the brands to even make it like they knew when Oswald was arrested, he'd have a gun with mixed bullets and extra bullets in his pocket that were Remington and Western, right?
Okay.
Remington Peters and Western.
So the shells that the Tippit killer threw down as he was fleeing the scene, you don't think he ejected those from his gun? You think he or
no?
What?
I think it was sleight of hand. He just pulled them from his pocket, was sprinkling them. And if you go back and look at the testimony, it's right there in the Warren Commission. Sam Ginyard says he rolled the shell between his thumb and forefinger for a second or two and then dropped it. He was placing them like so many breadcrumbs.
So the testimony of the killer opening up and tapping out the shells, you think that they're wrong?
Purely for show. It was sleight of hand.
So even though they saw him tap the shells out, you think it was just sleight of hand and that he just reached in his
Right. He had the shells from the other gun to drop. Yep.
So he reached in his pocket, pulled out the pre-fired shells, and then threw them up and then threw them down.
There is no need to talk about whether Poe marked something or whether they were switched or put in a drawer and other shells were switched, or that in Westbrook's office after Jerry Hill gave him Oswald's gun that he had for an hour that Westbrook switched them. No, this thing was arranged beforehand, and it was arranged by using a rechambered pistol.
So the lookalike, where did the lookalike run away? No. So
the lookalike wound up down at the theater. He was up in the balcony.
I know.
He was arrested and brought. The arrest papers say we arrested the suspect in the balcony.
Yeah. So you think that the real Oswald was then, when he was arrested, was taken out front where he's
out front in his brown shirt,
and then the Oswald double, of course, was taken around the back and seen
in his white shirt, put in a squad car, and then he's seen at 2:00 by Matt Pate over at the El Chico restaurant.
And then
in a car that has Tippit's friend's license plate on it.
And is that the double that is seen getting out of Dodge on the airplane by Vinson?
Yeah, by Robert Vinson, correct, in the book Flight from Dallas. Exactly.
Because he says, how can that guy be in jail when I was sitting right next to him?
Right.
On the airplane.
How can he be in the car at the El Chico?
Okay. Mm-hmm. Anything else we didn't cover about Tippit, or did we pretty much sum up all your beliefs on Tippit?
Yeah, they would be the major ones. I think there is just an enormous body of evidence that shows that there was someone impersonating Oswald.
I agree with that.
Or the assassination, the morning of the assassination,
I agree.
During the assassination, after the assassination.
I agree.
And this is witnessed by credible people. And that basically distorts the story and really complicates it. But if you think about the fact that the person who probably went into the rooming house and took the wallet and the jacket, when you realize that was the second or Oswald or the double, all the other witness testimony becomes true. What Roger Craig saw and all the people in Dealey Plaza saw were true.
Yeah.
The bus driver is right. The
Yeah.
cab driver is correct. The
So
people in the theater are correct
So
that they
overall,
saw.
yeah. So overall, we've covered basically all your beliefs on
The major ones, yes, yeah. That is a good overview of how I see this playing out.
yeah.
And I think that the main thing that people have to understand, if you're new to the case, I would start with the wallet, because the wallet is the thing that changed me from being on the fence to knowing that Lee Oswald was set up, that this was a setup. And then, of course, when you go in, what happens to the rest of the weekend, you have to know, for example, that Harry Olson and his girlfriend, later his wife, who was a Ruby stripper, sit in a car with Ruby, telling him that somebody should take care of this guy. And the whole story of Ruby getting in, just walking down the ramp on Sunday morning at police headquarters at the exact time that Oswald is being brought out, which is an hour and 10 or hour and 15 minutes after he's supposed to be brought out. It's too incredible of the story. We're just asked to believe too many things.
All right. So you've laid it all out. Man, there's so much to respond to. Wow. I don't even know. I don't even know where to.
Matt, I know I've hit you with a lot. I've hit the audience with a lot. I have a different look at this.
Yeah.
And I really believe that the wallet tells you that Oswald was set up.
Okay. Did we talk about the wallet other than how you think it got there, or no?
I obviously either Croy put it there, or someone from the crowd handed it to him. But the early witnesses on the scene, Ted Calloway, Domingo Benavides, the cab driver, all said there was no wallet there. We would have seen it. It was not there.
The thing is that Sergeant Croy said that a person approached him at the scene and said, "Here you go," and turned in the wallet to him.
Yes.
So
he held it despite a couple of dozen officers and people who outranked him showing up to the scene. He waited until Captain Westbrook arrived at about 1:40 before he turned that over to Westbrook. And a few minutes later, we see the film footage from the local TV station of Westbrook showing FBI agent Barrett and the other police officers that wallet. And that wallet shouldn't be there.
So you don't believe Croy when he said that a civilian turned in the wallet? You think he had the wallet, right?
Croy, I think so, but it's possible it was turned in. Either way, Matt, it doesn't belong there. Yeah. And we're told by the Dallas police, we're told by the Lone Nutters, we're told that there never was a wallet, despite all the evidence and testimony that there was. Officer Croy later in life would sign photographs of Tippit's police car with his name and say, "Recovered Oswald's wallet at scene."
Yeah.
First on scene, recovered Oswald's wallet. How much more do you need? Bill Brown says, "Well, that's just nonsense." But he doesn't. He just wants to dismiss it. But that's what Croy was saying.
I think, assuming that Croy was not involved in anything, I think that the straightforward answer would be that a conspirator went to the Tippit shooting and turned in the wallet to Croy and said, "Here you go." The killer threw it down when we know no witness saw the killer throw down anything.
Right.
So
the wallet is completely suspicious.
So basically everything you laid out, I guess I just have for a lot of it, I just have alternative hypothesis.
If you can accept the second person in Oswald's room and it wasn't Oswald, this whole case is like a Rubik's Cube. And when you turn it, all the colors line up.
Well, if it was a look-alike, then she would think it was Oswald, right? And
she thought it was Oswald.
If it was Oswald, which she said it was, so it's like either way, it's still an Oswald. So therefore, it makes
Well, there's
sense.
only one Lee Oswald, and he's the one that Jack Ruby shot and is buried over in the cemetery in Fort Worth. There's supposed to only be one Oswald, but we
Okay.
know there isn't.
Okay.
Too much evidence.
I'm trying to figure out how to respond to all this because again, there's so much to respond to.
Right.
I think it's possible that Oswald leaves the building, gets in the station wagon, and is driven to where he gets on the bus. I think he's driven. They go "Rrr," and he's driven all and to where he gets on the bus, and then he gets on the bus, and I think he's probably wearing the blue jacket
Blue jacket. Mhm.
blue jacket that even Bill Frazier said that he was wearing a jacket that morning.
Correct.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Um,
I'll tell you what I think happened to the blue jacket, Matt. I think when Oswald went into the theater, and I remember going into theaters much like the Texas Theater, they had places to hang up your jacket.
and I
He
think
hung his jacket up.
we'll get there in a second. And then I think he gets on the bus and then he gets in the taxi and
Right.
then William Whaley sees the bracelet and everything, sees the blue jacket, sees everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think he drops him off at at the 700 block of North Beckley. Now, and I think he does walk back to his rooming house because a witness in the neighborhood named Cecil Reed sees Oswald walking toward his rooming house. So I think that's true. I think
I've never heard of Cecil Reed, so that's new information for me.
I'll put the clip right here. Yeah,
Okay.
and then I think Oswald enters the rooming house, which Mrs. Roberts said he was, and then he goes into his room for 3 minutes, and then he leaves, wearing not the Eisenhower jacket that's now in evidence, but I think he's still wearing the blue jacket
Mm-hmm.
because Mrs. Roberts said that the jacket that Oswald was wearing when he left the rooming house was a dark
Dark
jacket.
jacket. But if you
So,
look at the photographs of the inside of the rooming house, the lighting by the door is very poor. It's in a shadow, and the only light is what's
and
coming through
she
the
and she
panes of glass on top.
and she was shown Oswald's gray Eisenhower jacket that's in evidence now, and she
Yeah.
can't see it. So I think this whole time Oswald's wearing his blue jacket, and then I think he goes outside to the bus stop at the curb, and
Mm-hmm.
he's there for several minutes, and then I think he probably I used to say he probably was driven there, possibly by the cop car that Mrs. Erling Roberts saw out front because that cop car was later determined to have not been in use anymore. So I think that cop car could have driven him straight line down Zang to the Texas Theater,
Mm-hmm.
and then Oswald gets out and then is see
Then
go
he would have been seen just after 1 o'clock, as
and
Butch
then
Burroughs said. Yeah.
as Butch Burroughs said around 1:15 or something like that. Here give or take a few minutes. Now the other alternative is that I think walked to the Texas Theater and then that would get them there when Johnny Brewer sees him. So I think that the lookalike arrived at 1:15. The lookalike arrived at 1:15 and was already in there and was seen by Burroughs and Davis.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that the Oswald still with the blue jacket walks all the way to the Texas Theater and then ducks into Johnny Brewer's shoe store and still wearing a jacket because in 1992 Johnny Brewer said that he was wearing a jacket. Now, if
Right.
he was wearing a
Right.
jacket, then the game is up because the Tippit killer ditched his white jacket. Whoever shot Tippit was wearing a white jacket
Right.
that was found and filmed, and it was later swapped out with
Right.
Oswald's gray Eisenhower jacket, which I think was still at the rooming house, probably, or
The jacket itself is very suspect,
and then
and whether it was
yeah,
Oswald's or
and
not. But
then
what we know is when Captain Westbrook
yeah,
went to Oak Cliff, He didn't go to 10th and Patton. He went right to the Texaco lot where the jacket is found. Why would he go to there?
Oh, it's like, and then Johnny Brewer sees Oswald duck into the Texas Theater, and then that's the person who's arrested, and therefore Johnny Brewer wouldn't have to see another guy, and as I said,
Well,
take
understand that
the one.
Johnny Brewer was present, Matt, when Oswald was taken out the front. So he saw the brown shirt. So he had a chance to correct what he saw.
Maybe. And so I think that the lookalike has been upstairs in the balcony, and then Oswald, the real Oswald, in the blue jacket. In the meantime, he takes off his jacket, and it's later found in the Texas Theater. And I think that jacket is put in the
Correct.
Book
I agree with
depository.
that.
It's left in there, so therefore he does. So okay, and then that's why when he's arrested, he doesn't have a jacket. The jacket's found there by police later, as I said, planted in the Texas Theater, found weeks later, and then Johnny Brewer points out the man he just saw. Yeah, that's him, Oswald. And then Oswald fights the cops, is taken out front, and then the lookalike that's been upstairs is taken out the back and is put in the squad car and leaves, and then and then is seen elsewhere at um um what we talked about, West Wise, El Chico, and everything, and then arrives at the airport and is taken out of state.
Right.
So
Yeah, you and I agree on a lot of it, but I think the wallet, second wallet being there, that's where they messed up. And I think,
as for Oswald's wallet being and Oswald wallet turning up at the Tippit scene, I think that a conspirator just seeing an opportunity went to the crime scene, approached Croy and said, "Here you go." The killer threw it down, which is not true because
where did they get that wallet?
Because no witness saw the Tippit killer throwing down anything. So and that makes sense because it was turned in. So why would someone say, "Here you go"? The killer threw it down if he never did anything. I don't know how a conspirator got that wallet. I mean,
I think they got it from Oswald's room. That's where they got it.
I don't think we can prove. No one can prove that. So I think that a conspirator, as I said, seeing an opportunity, went to the crime scene, approached Croy and said, "Here you go." The killer threw it down, but that's not true because no witness saw the Tippit killer throwing anything. So therefore, a conspirator went and saw an opportunity or whatever, and then later, it's taken out of evidence. And so I think that so basically that's what I believe. You laid out what you believe. I laid out what I believe. I know
they're alternate routes to pretty much the same place.
So basically, your timeline and my time is really different, but we just have different interpretations. But and that's the great thing. Both you and I interpret the evidence different ways, but we can still have these conversations.
The wallet is the important piece of evidence for me, Matt, and that wallet shouldn't be there. And I think the reason the conspirators made such a mistake is they got the wallet from Oswald's room, thinking that's his only wallet.
Yeah.
Not realizing he has one on his person. He has 2 or 3 more in the paying garage, that he has a thing for wallets.
Yeah. So ultimately, you do believe an Oswald killed Tippit, not the Oswald, an Oswald.
Certainly, because you have people who were so sure, and I think Oswald would have been convicted of the Tippit slaying. I mean, people such as Bill Brown and Dale Myers, for example, these are smart people. There was a load of evidence against Lee Oswald, but I believe it was manufactured.
So
it was just as Jim Garrison said to his people. He said, "You have to think on a new level. White is black and black is white. We're looking through the looking glass." You're talking about an organization such as the CIA. They can make something like this happen. It was all done with sleight of hand. and to make people believe they saw something that they didn't see.
So you don't.
I mean, I would sit in a jury box and listen to Ted Calloway, and I would believe him. Of course, he saw someone that looked much like Lee Oswald. Back in Philadelphia, are you a Dallas Cowboys fan? Are you a football fan? Okay. I mean, you know, up here in Philly, we have the Eagles. A few years ago, when we won the championship, we had two quarterbacks, and one's name was Carson Wentz. And somebody in Philadelphia, one of his teammates was reading the newspaper, and he saw a picture, and he said, "What's Carson doing, you know, in the story?" And he looked closer at the picture, and it said Prince Harry of Great Britain. The quarterback for the Eagles, Carson Wentz, and Prince Harry of Great Britain are doppelgangers. They look. It's very hard to tell them apart in photographs. And if you saw somebody coming out of 10 Downing Street who had just murdered the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and you saw Carson Wentz, and you're British, you would have sworn that Prince Harry had just killed the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
They are, and at 50, 60 feet or 100 feet away, a moving person with a gun, very easy to confuse them. I think this person looked much like Oswald. You have affidavits from people who saw this person, who swore they saw Oswald, but it couldn't have been Oswald. Oswald was somewhere else. I mean, have you ever been mistaken for somebody else? I have. I mean, I have a brother who only looks marginally like me. And
yes.
we were mistaken at the same restaurant for one being the other.
Okay, so and the other thing that we disagree on is you think Tippit was involved in the conspiracy. I don't. Is that
yes? Yeah, I believe the fact that Tippit was at that Gloco station overlooking the viaduct at approximately 12:40 to 12:45 tells me he was up there even before Murray Jackson told him to go north. So, and he also allegedly had arrested a shoplifter at the Hodges supermarket in his district. That person never wound, there's no record. That person never wound up at the substation, was never processed. Tippit was in Oak Cliff before he should have been.
Okay, so yeah, I agree with Greg Lowery and Larry Harris that the two people who studied Tippit the most, that they both came to the same conclusion that Tippit was not involved in the conspiracy. I can concede that maybe he was on that day he was asked to do a favor or to do something.
That favor was to pick up Lee Oswald and bring him to the theater.
But I don't think that he was involved in the plot or the conspiracy.
I think that was he was involved because he was going to be double crossed and be killed so that the police would be led to the theater and be in a position where they would likely shoot and kill Lee Oswald. Oswald was supposed to die in that theater. And you can't tell me that Plan A, Matt, was to have Jack Ruby walk in to the Dallas police station in front of 70 Dallas policemen and shoot Lee Oswald in the stomach. That was not Plan A. I think that the assassination went as planned in Dealey Plaza. I think where the wheels came off the wagon was out in Oak Cliff. And Oak Cliff and the Tippit murder is the Rosetta Stone of this case, of the JFK case.
Like I said, I just have to agree with Larry Harris that Tippit was not involved in the plot or a conspiracy. Okay, so you all,
Matt, it's not just the Gloco station. He is there at the Hobbs Diner when the Oswald lookalike throws a fit about his runny eggs. Tippit had no business being there. He was with the lookalike. He had brought the lookalike there, and I believe Tippit was involved. That's why Carl Mather's license plate was on the car seen at the El Chico restaurant with the Oswald lookalike at 2:00. There's too many things to tie Tippit in. I think he was a minor player, and I think his job was to drop Tippit off or to drop Oswald off at the theater. And that is why Oswald acted so badly when the cops approached him in the theater. In his mind, in Oswald's mind, it was Tippit who set him up. in his, and that's why he said that's it.
Oh,
That's it.
so do
Yeah,
you,
he thought Tippit had set up. He had no idea that Tippit was on a slab at the Methodist hospital at that point.
why do you think Oswald's revolver misfired in the theater?
They may have purposely uh, taken the revolver and disarmed it or damaged it in such a way that it couldn't fire, so none of the police officers would
After
get killed.
after they already got shells from it though.
Yeah, you would shoot it, get the shells, and then manipulate or take some tool and bend the firing pin so that none of the cops would get killed. That Oswald would be the one shot and killed. Oswald was not
So
supposed to leave that
therefore,
theater alive.
so therefore they're making sure that Oswald doesn't do more damage, so they bend his
Right.
fire pin.
Right.
I guess that's possible, yeah. And for the source of the firing pin allegedly being bent, I'll put the information right here on the screen. Okay, so you believe that a lookalike, that an Oswald lookalike shot Tippit? I don't.
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't. I've analyzed in analyzing all the descriptions of the Tippit killer by 25 witnesses. I don't think that they point more to a perp looking like Oswald. I
Well,
don't
you still
think
have the
that.
problem, Matt, of several people and some pretty credible people like Ted Calloway
Yeah,
picking Oswald out of the lineup. Now the lineups were tainted. They were
yes.
done hastily. They were done poorly. They were prejudiced. They were not fair. Oswald has a bruised eye, and he's screaming at the police that you're trying to railroad me. The
Yeah,
people.
but
I understand that.
I've looked at from my count, roughly there are 120 descriptions of the Tippit killer.
Mm-hmm.
Of the Tippit killer. And that does not mean that that all 25 witnesses described him, 4 different ways. What it means is if you line up all the comments of all the Tippit witnesses who described his shoes, this is this, his jacket, this is this.
And nobody mentions a brown shirt. Nobody mentions a brown shirt.
Yeah, his shirt, jacket, height, weight, hair color, eye color, everything. I've
Yeah, bushy hair, a little bit chubby. I get
yeah,
that. But a
yeah.
lookalike can
Under,
have slightly bushy hair and be chubbier than Oswald,
yeah.
and still at a glance be mistaken for
So
him.
extracting the information from all those descriptions, generally, this is how the Tippit killer looked. A white male, age 18 to 25. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dark eyes. Oswald didn't have dark eyes. Black hair. Oswald didn't
I
have.
don't think anyone was close enough to see his eyes, Matt.
Oswald did. Oswald didn't have black hair either. His hair type was a little bit bushy. Also a little bit curly. Looked like he needed a haircut for about 2 weeks. Brushed up in front to form a pompadour.
Yeah, Oswald didn't have that.
Complexion dark and ruddy. Oswald wasn't dark and ruddy. Height 5'11". As you said, Oswald was shorter than that. Weight a little heavy. Oswald wasn't heavy. Wearing a white t-shirt. He wasn't wearing a white t-shirt. He was wearing a brown shirt. A tan jacket. Oswald wasn't wearing a tan jacket. He was wearing his blue jacket.
Mm-hmm.
And dark pants. Okay, he was wearing dark pants. Black shoes. Okay, black shoes. And holding a revolver. So 80% of all these descriptions of the Tippit killer do not point to Oswald, which leads me to believe that it was not an Oswald lookalike who shot.
I can understand that, but you have to realize that no one got a really close or good look. I'm not even sure that Helen Markham was there. I think she arrived several seconds or a minute afterward,
Well,
and she processed in her mind what Benavides told her
I don't
and
think
what Scoggins told her. That's why she had the killer walking the wrong way, and she saw things. I mean, the fact that she talked to Tippit for 20 minutes, Tippit was dead when he hit the ground. Everybody agrees to that.
Well, when the Davis sisters ran out of their house, they saw Helen Markham screaming, and that's a couple seconds after the shot.
Yeah.
So I do think Helen Markham was there. I just think she's not a reliable witness for a lot of reasons.
Well, I'll tell you another thing, and I ran this past Joe McBride, and he agreed with me. Um, the timeline is wrong because if you listen to Markham's testimony and there are actual tapes of her reliving what happened. The time it took for Oswald to walk across Patton, and then she saw him get up on the step up onto the curb. He has to walk another 100 feet to the spot where Tippit stops him. Tippit pulls over to the curb and beckons Oswald to the window, or the gunman, I would say. We're falling into calling him Oswald. The person walks to the window. Okay, they have a conversation for 10 to 20 seconds. Tippit then slowly gets out of the car, adjusts his cap, starts to walk to the front of his patrol car. Then he is shot. When you add everything up, that's most of a minute. Helen Markham was a trim fit, middle-aged waitress who was hustling to catch her bus. They always show her as standing on the corner. She wasn't standing on the corner. She was walking. If you take her testimony, she would have been halfway down Patton Street to Jefferson when that shooting occurred. The timeline of her story doesn't match the physical layout of the corner in the street.
So you think she wouldn't have arrived that quickly?
I think she didn't see the shooting. I think she heard the shots and then arrived at the corner, saw the body, and started screaming. I don't think she saw the actual shooting.
So she arrived seconds after the shooting.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I guess
because she describes the gunman as running off across the lot on 10th Street.
But you heard the shots and saw the immediate a few seconds after.
Yeah.
You know what? I guess that makes sense because that would account for
her mistakes.
Of Oswald going east when really the killer was going west.
Yeah.
And that would still account for the Davis sisters seeing her screaming and saying, "He shot that man." I guess that, and that would also account. Well, could that also account for maybe her She originally said 2 shots. She said he went bang bang just like that, but it didn't happen. So if she hears see, I don't know.
And you just said something that reminds me of something very important. And this is a bone I have to pick, and I get very upset with the reenactments of this crime. Mm-hmm. I believe that Helen Markham was there, but she arrived a few seconds later. I do not believe that Jack Ray Tatum was ever there. And this nonsense about a 4th shot in the street, this coup de grace, I don't believe any of it. All of the witnesses, and especially the ear witnesses, Matt, all say that the shots were close together. It was bang, 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 bang. They were, and it had to be if the killer was shooting Tippit over the hood, because he would have fallen in a second or two. So that those shots had to get off very quickly. And all of the witnesses, eyewitnesses, and ear witnesses say the shots were grouped tightly together. Bang, 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 bang. There was no time, and Scoggins said that. He said there was no time for the killer to walk around the car, all the way around the car, and shoot Tippit in the head. He was already on top of me, and that's why I was hiding behind my cab. Ted Calloway said no. The shots came very quickly, and by the time I walked out of my office and was at the curb, the killer was coming down Patton Street. There was no time for the killer to walk around into the street and shoot Tippit close up. I don't believe anything Jack Tatum said.
So you don't
not a thing. He was not there. His testimony for the House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1978, Tatum doesn't come forward for almost 15 years. His testimony was used to bolster the testimony of Helen Markham, who had largely been discredited because of all the unusual things that she saw that could not have happened. Remember, even the lawyers for the Warren Commission said Mrs. Markham is an utter screwball. We can't rely on her testimony. They had to bring somebody else in, and that person was Jack Ray Tatum. He was not there. And that idea of somebody standing over Tippit and shooting him that last shot did not happen. And all of the ear witnesses agree.
So there is some evidence to support Tatum's claims. As far as you saying that there couldn't have been a pause and then one more shot,
No,
uh,
didn't happen.
one of the Davis, one of the Davis sisters said that the second burst of gunfire or the second shot was like a minute after the first. So maybe
Well,
that,
that never happened. Couldn't have happened.
well, not a minute, but maybe it's a little gap for Tatum's account.
Hmm.
So that's,
Benavides doesn't hear that or see that.
I know.
Callaway, Scoggins, none of the
And
close-up witnesses would agree to that.
and also James Archer, witness James Archer saw the killer fire a coup de grace shot. But or he could just be parroting Tatum years later. I'm not sure.
That could
Uh,
be. Or they could have seen a person walk out and look at the body the way that Mr.
he said,
Frank Wright did.
well, he said he saw he described what Tatum saw, how he stepped in the street and shot him again. Now I know,
No, Mr. Wright said he never saw a gun. He saw a person with a jacket but no gun.
no, I'm talking about Archer. I'm talking about Archer.
Oh, Archer. Okay. Yeah.
Archer, yeah. So tip the reason these why I think Tatum was there is that first of all, Larry Harris believed that Jack Tatum was there. And also people say, well, why didn't Jack Tatum wait so many years to come forward and everything like that? Well, actually, you know, the backstory on that is that Tatum did not um come forward. He was found and he reluctantly told his story. In fact, he had secretly told his boss years before that he was at the scene, and that's like the only person beside, that he told besides his wife. And then when the HSCA the House Select Committee on Assassinations was investigating in the 70s, they were they asked for tips or information on the assassination, and Jack Tatum's boss called them up and said, I have an employee who was there. And then they sent investigators down to Dallas, and then they approached Jack Tatum at his work, and he saw these two HSC investigators who happened to be wearing trench coats, approached them. He thought two hitmen were coming to take him out. And he backs into a corner,
Maybe he had a few beers with Warren Reynolds.
They he's scared shitless. He backs into a corner,
Right.
and then they identify themselves. We're from Washington. We're with the House Select Committee on Assassinations investigating the reopening of the assassination of JFK. And the first words out of Jack Tatum's mouth was, "How did you find me?"
Mhm.
So I think that leads credibility.
But the testimony doesn't fit with the facts of the case. And what it does do is it supports Helen Markham, who was largely discredited. I mean, you have things like Helen Markham talking to Mark Lane on the phone, and the whole thing's recorded. And then later on, she's asked, you know, who is this woman on the phone? Oh, I've never heard of it. Well, it's you. She didn't even know it was herself on the.
To be fair, I think she was talking about when she said, I've never heard
that lady before.
I think she was talking about the operator, because if you listen to the telephone call, she's talking, there was an operator saying, Mrs. Helen Markham? Yes, this she? All right, Mr. Lane, yes. All right, here you go. So I think she was thinking about the operator.
But she said she never spoke to Mark Lane before either. And, Mark Lane had a long conversation, which was recorded, and he starts the conversation. I'm Mark Lane, an attorney. She said, no, I spoke to somebody from City Hall. I didn't speak to you.
And then she said it was Captain Fritz. He called called and impersonated Captain Fritz. And then Vincent Bugliosi in his goddamn book wrote,
right.
Look what Mark Lane did. When the recording, transcript is in the 26 volumes, and the audio's on YouTube.
Yes.
Sorry, but yeah, sorry.
No, and
anyway.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we didn't cover? Or?
No, probably. I mean, there's always something else, but I think we've done plenty today. I would say anybody interested in the case, or if we've confused anybody, I would tell them first look into the wallet situation,
Yeah.
and then look into the well-documented evidence that there was a second person who had been impersonating Oswald for quite some time.
And
There was even an FBI memo that was put out, signed by J. Edgar Hoover himself in the early '60s, when Oswald was in the Soviet Union, saying to his agents, "Be careful, there's somebody impersonating this."
again, I think it's been proven. So yeah,
Yeah.
both.
So it may sound wild to a new person to this case. What are they talking about? A second Oswald or a double? We're dealing with a very strange case that is not your normal case, and the normal parameters do not apply. As Jim Garrison again said, white is black and black is white, and this is through the looking glass. What happened in 10th and Patton was very strange. The wallet doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
Person showing up, I believe, at the rooming house doesn't belong there. And the person impersonating Lee Oswald for months before the assassination, that should have never happened. There's so much that is suspicious in this case. And if you're not suspicious, I don't know what I could say to help you. It's a very strange case. And to this, and I agree, as I said early, Matt, before we leave, I was on the fence for years, but when I heard and saw evidence to the wallet, that turned me.
And
That
the
did.
Oswald double. And the Oswald double.
Yes, and the Oswald double, because it's strange, but it is so well documented. So well documented. And my book will probably be coming up by the end of the year, and I'll have all of that in there, the information about the wallet and double.
What's your book going to be called?
The working title is the Tippit frame.
Really?
The Tippit frame. Yeah.
So you're going to be the only fourth author who's ever published a book solely on the Tippit murder. First was
correct, and it's been my area of interest for many years, ever since I was a small boy, and I heard my grandmother and mother having coffee and talking about Mrs. Tippit and how this poor policeman was killed trying to stop the assassin. And now you had 3 kids, young kids without a father. And when I heard that they had gotten 600,000 or 700,000, I was a working class kid in Philly, hustling for a buck. I used to shovel sidewalks and mow lawns, and I would often take my radio flyer wagon down to the local supermarket in a row house neighborhood in the inner city.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't have cars, and the houses are close together. So I would take that down to the supermarket, and a woman would come out with her groceries, and I would take them from the shopping cart, put them in my radio flyer wagon, walk behind her, so that I could take the groceries up into her house, and I would usually be tipped 10, 15, 20 cents, sometimes a quarter if I was lucky. You do that a few times, and you had movie money for that afternoon at a theater that looked very much like the Texas Theater to see a double matinee. So that's how I became interested in the Tippit case.
Gotcha. Hey, Jack, this was a.
Yeah, I hope I didn't hit you with too much. We agree on 90%. 10% that we don't agree on is wildly different, but we get to the same place.
Yeah, I know. So it was pretty interesting. And yeah. Again, you're my first conspiracy believer guest. So
right.
Thanks so much.
And there's still things to debate. Like you said, you challenged me on a few things. Hey, this is the information out there. What do you have to say about it? Even because the lone nutters have the same, they're all on the same page. The conspiracy people have different views. Was it the mafia? Was it the CIA?
Very interesting.
So everything with this case is highly suspicious, and everything that we were told in the early days by the Warren Commission and by the press has to be double checked and is suspect.
Gotcha. Hey, Jack, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matt. Maybe we'll do this again in the future or talk about a different aspect of the case, but say hi to all those lone nutters for me next time you're with. They're good guys. Like Bill Brown's a great guy.
Yeah.
Man, I'd love to have dinner with him sometime or share a beer. He's a great guy. We just don't agree on the case. I mean, Bill's tough just by himself. I think he's got his arguments together. He's very believable, And he argues the lone nut case as well, if not better, than anyone else I've ever heard.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy. I don't know how he comes to that conclusion, but he does.
All right.
But thanks so much. Keep up the good fight.
You too.
I'm glad you're keeping the case alive. And I appreciate these people, like Dale Myers and Bill Brown. Dale Myers kept this case alive for years when nobody was working on it. I don't agree with the man. I don't agree with this book. But think about all the work he did and all the evidence he collected. And Bill Brown knows the case as well as you and I.
Yeah.
I think of us as all working together to try to solve it. I don't have any enemies in this case. I just have people I disagree with. I disagree to disagree, but they're great people.
All right. Hey, thanks so much, Jack.
Thanks again, man. It's good to see you. Thanks.